As we mentioned, September is Recovery Month. It aims to increase public awareness surrounding mental health and addiction recovery. This morning, our good friend Kevin Petersen from the Chronic Hope Institute joining us in person, not via Zoom or whatever we do anymore these days, to actually share his own personal story with recovery. Kevin, good morning to you. We talk about, solutions to help so many other people. We know like talking just about our own personal experiences is actually one of the best things that we can do for people. So thank you so much for agreeing to be vulnerable and having the courage to share this.
It's my pleasure. It's part of the process is being able to make yourself available to others.
Yeah. Kevin, if you don't mind me just starting off with the question of when did you start using drugs?
So I was about 13. I actually started using when I would go camping with the Boy Scouts of America. And I would start drinking and using, and back then it was very recreational. Yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. Maybe they're not familiar with that, and they're saying the Boy Scouts of America. Wait, what?
I know. Well, it was, there was this group of older guys that got to camp a little further away from the parents, and I was like, there was something going on over there that I wanted to get in on, and they let me in, and it turned out that I loved it.
Yeah.
It was my thing.
Yeah, and that's, for a lot of people, would you say that's kind of how addiction can start? Not necessarily that specific experience, but you don't expect to like it as much.
No, I mean, I wasn't, I wasn't blackout drinking at 13.
Right.
I was like, oh, this feels great. I mean, there are some people that try alcohol and drugs at that age, and they're like, ugh, this is gross. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
I loved it.
When we talk about this, you obviously at some point started your recovery journey. How much longer after all of that did that begin?
So I started around 13, and then when I was 26, my parents sort of circled the wagons and said, we love you, but it's over. And until you clean up your act, you're out of the family. But then they also offered me sort of a lifeline and said, look, we'd be, if you're willing to get help, we'll get you help. And so I started seeing a therapist in 1991 with my dad in January. And after 5 months of that, the therapist looked at me and said, I think you're a drug addict and alcoholic, and I think you need help. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so then I started going to 12-step meetings right away.
So I'm curious, because we've had a lot of these stories where, people say, it has to be up to the person who might be using. They have to be ready to accept this help. It's not just somebody coming into their life saying you need help.
Right. So yes, and is the answer to that. Because you have to have the self-realization that you need to stop and you need help stopping. But what I believe is that the people around you that love you, that care about you, can also step into you and say, you know what? I love you, this isn't okay.
Right.
And look, I had lost jobs, girlfriends, friends, and when my family finally drew the line and held the line, that made me pay attention.
I'm curious because I think there are a lot of people that might actually find themselves in that position where they really love somebody, but they kind of just say, I have to put my foot down, I have to draw a boundary, but they're scared they're going to lose that person in their life forever. What kind of advice would you give them this morning?
Well, I would say that, you have to remember that what they're doing is probably putting their life in jeopardy to begin with. And so standing up for them, and I believe you say it with a piece of love and empathy, not anger and frustration. I love you. I'm worried about you. I want to help you. And I think that's how you start the conversation.
And let me reframe that question now. What would you say to the person who might be using, who's going through that situation? What advice do you have for them?
I would say, if somebody comes to you, maybe pay attention and hear what they have to say. Try reducing. Try what we call harm reduction. See how that works. See if you can. Some people can, some people can't. I couldn't. I kept trying over and over again to temper it and slow it down, and I just didn't have that ability.
Everybody's journey looks a little bit different, but the one thing they all share in common is you have to begin somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kevin Petersen, our friend, thank you so much for being with us. Seriously, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure. I mean, it's one of the great gifts I have paid to give.
Yeah, it's helping so many people out. We're actually going to be talking to Kevin here in about 20 minutes. We're going to be going over a little bit more of the solutions coming up. So stick around, Kevin, and we'll be right back.